Computer. Hello, everybody. My name is Jenni, and today I'm talking with Leslie Grossman, my friend, and she's a wonderful leadership coach, and she's the director of Executive Women's Leadership Program at George Washington University and the founder of her Circle Leadership and Coaching Program. And today we're going to dive in and talk about women's leadership and what kind of tools, what kind of methods, what kind of help women in general need at the moment with their careers, with their personal lives, how they can actually balance their work life, and how they can succeed without sacrificing everything, but to get everything that they want, right? Leslie, yeah. That's something that we believe really, really strongly, that you can have everything and you should really go after for your desires and goals and dreams and your potential.
Your potential and your vision.
And your vision, yeah, of course. So here we have two coaches talking about women leadership, and yeah, let's dive in. Leslie, do you want to tell me a little bit more about your career? Because it's quite interesting. How have you gotten here and how you became a coach and why actually you became a coach in the first place?
Well, I will try to make this story concise, but I will just say that I started off as an entrepreneur, and I was really an entrepreneur for 20 years. And I had all the successes and failures that most entrepreneurs have. It was very much an up and down thing. But when at the peak, I actually learned from experience and the support of other women and courses and coaching, by the way, because I had a coach. Mm-hmm. I grew a business to almost $3 million in revenue. So it was quite successful. And then there was a crash. Mm-hmm. And when there was a crash in the economy, I did not know what I needed to know to carry my business through that. And that's when my career in women's leadership actually really began. Because often we learn the most through failure or mistakes.
Yep.
And so that, you go from the highest to the lowest of low, and many of us have been there. However, that's what actually led me to starting my first program for women, because I realized that what is it that I didn't know that other entrepreneurs don't know? And I started a conference program with the support of one of my clients. And we did a conference program all over the US, and we did it for 10 years. And we had the best speakers, and I learned from them. The speakers, I learned all those things I didn't know. That led me into becoming an executive coach and being part of a major coaching program where I got lots of practice. But my heart was always with women. I always wanted to support women. And so I left that general coaching practice where I was actually coaching a lot of male CEOs, and it gave me good practice. Yeah. But I also realized how women were being left out of this and how different it was, what the differences were, the challenges that we have that are so unique to us. Not only because we have the responsibility so often of the family and those, whether it's children or aging parents. So that led me into what I do today, which was developing a program exclusively for women. And that is based on not just my own experience or other women's experience, but a lot of research.
Yeah.
And a tremendous amount of research, which continues to this day as things change.
Yeah, that's quite amazing, because what I hear from your story, it's the failure part. It's really coming up, because you said quite many times that you learn from others, you learn from your own experiences, you learn to flow and rise, after difficult phases in your career, in your life. And isn't that the main thing, what we need to, how we need to see the obstacles, how we need to see challenges, and we all struggle, but it's quite like a golden, most important habit. I call it habit, that you learn to learn from your mistakes, and you learn to, which are not mistakes, but we all do mistakes, but failures, and learn to use that information for our growth.
That's right. Instead of beating ourselves up about
yes.
it, which is what we women often do, it's looking at it and say, okay, what could I have done differently? Or maybe this failure is pointing me in another direction, that this was not right for me. And what is it that I really want to do with my life? And in my case, I learned from it, but I also said, I don't really want, at the time I was running a big PR agency, I don't want to run a big PR agency anymore. I don't want to run any. I want to support women. So it kind of changed my career path. So that's another thing that comes from when things don't go well, or they don't go the way you want, or maybe, like in my case, it really was a failure. But I'm glad I had that failure, because I would not be as happy today if I was still running an agency, and I am leaving, so it's like we can look at it in different points of view.
Absolutely. And looking at it from that point of view, that you didn't even want to do that anymore. Somewhere in your heart, you had a calling, and you probably took some time before you decided, like, hey, I'm not going to do this agency thing anymore. I'm not going to run the PR agency anymore. I want to do something else. How was that transition for you? Because I'm really curious, because for myself, when I left corporate and decided I'm not going to be in that environment anymore,
Right.
I need to become a coach, I need to become a mentor. That was really clear that I need to use my gifts and skills that I have, and have been able to help people. How was the transition for you? Because that is the biggest fear for people, to jump out from the comfort zones and regular income, and how can I become an entrepreneur? How can I change my career? I'm 40 years old, 50 years old. Is it too late? This is what many people ask. Maybe it's too late.
Never too late. It's never too late. And at the time, and I will tell you exactly how I did it. I had actually been working on my vision, my personal vision of how I wanted, the difference that I wanted to make in the world, with my coach. And I wrote my vision out, and I had it, and it was really to support the growth and of women entrepreneurs, and have financial freedom for myself. It was written a little more gracefully than that, but basically that's what it said. And I said it every day, and I had it by my bed, and I looked at it, and I didn't know how I was going to do it at the time, but I repeated it, and suddenly it clicked in my brain. Oh, I have a client that wants to reach women entrepreneurs. What if I can help them reach women entrepreneurs by creating a conference program that helps the women grow their businesses? It was like in a flash, it came to my brain. And when I started to really take it in, I had so much confidence that I could do it, because it was so right. And that is actually the first thing that, as a coach, that I work on with my clients, and my GW program, and in the coaching program that I do, where I train coaches to help their clients. I show them how to help their clients identify their vision, so that then once they have their vision, we can then move forward with all the other challenges that come up from getting them to their vision. And you can start to address them.
Absolutely. And quite often, like, I help my clients with vision as well. And it was something that happened to me in my own journey. Like, when I changed the career, I started asking, what do I really want? I had a vague idea, but it felt too big, because it was the mountaintop, I was like, how am I going to climb up there? How can I ever get there? It feels like it's going to take like another 20 years.
Right. Well, and that's kind of our self-limiting beliefs, right? Where we say, how could I possibly do that? That's where coaching can be magic, because the coach helps you get there. And nothing is too big. In fact, I don't know about, probably with your clients too, and the programs that I do, I look at their visions and I say, how can you make it bigger? How can you make it bolder? If
Yeah.
you know how to get there, it's let's think bigger.
Yeah, it's too easy. And
Yes,
it's boring actually. It's boring because I see like vision is like something, it's like an energy that really moves you forward. It helps you to wake
exactly.
up excited every day. And as you said, I was smiling because when you said about that, I saw that every day, the financial freedom, the coaching, everything, empowering women, and or supporting women. And it was like you really programmed your subconscious mind to make it happen, and that is activating your intuition. That's what's happening in the mind, and it's
Right.
not that complicated. And then your intuition was like, hey, there's a client, connect with her, she's helping you to actually get there.
Right. But yeah, exactly. I mean, let's talk about why we don't do that. And let's talk about what to do next, because
Yeah.
then once you get that vision, I mean, what women have to understand, the reason it's hard, I think, for women to think that way is because as girls, we haven't been trained to think big. Unless we've been in a sports team where you've had a coach that says you girls can do it, you can do it even if you feel like you can't. You haven't had people pushing you to do things out of your comfort zone for the most part. And we have to get comfortable doing new things. And we also have to be willing to ask people for support.
Yes.
And that's the thing that we often as women don't do. We think that we're going to, let's take example, and this, well, Jenni, you're in a corporate job, right? And we're working so hard, we believe we're going to be recognized for that work,
Yes.
right?
Like
They're just,
me.
yeah, you're right. And but we don't really brag about it. We don't tell anybody about it. We don't
But
even
work
voice
really,
it.
really hard,
We work, and they're going to notice us, and then we're not.
Yeah.
But the guy on the other side of the room, he gets the job. Why did we not get it? And there's a lot of good reasons.
Tell
Because
me about those reasons, yeah, because I think like it would be really helpful to create a list. Like, what is that? What are those reasons? One is lacking courage, but what are the other reasons? They are
well,
deeper.
right, because the deeper things are that we have, in school, when you get an A, you work hard, you get an A, so you're rewarded, right? When we go into the corporate world, it's not the same thing. In the corporate world, we have to build relationships, number one, with the right people. We have to tell people this is what we want. If we don't tell them, they're not going to help us get there, right? You didn't have to do that when you were going for an A,
Yeah.
but
So,
now you do. You have to express what your goals are, what your vision is,
and what
to
do you want?
what you
What?
want. That's right. And you have to talk about your accomplishments, because there's no report card.
Yeah.
And, if you don't talk about it and you don't share with other people what you want, and the influencers, the people that can get you there, you're just going to sit there and not be there. Now, why do the men? Because they are used to talking about it, right? They've already got this network built that just is natural, which goes back to the boys' network of sports and all of that, where most of the leaders are men, and they identify with the men on their way up, and they reach out to them, whereas they don't identify with women in the same way. And those young men are saying, tell me how you got to where you are.
Yeah.
What's the route I need to take to get there? And we women may not be asking those questions.
No. Rarely women are being asked about their careers, how much money they make, what they do, where they want to go. It's about other things, especially when the kids are involved, when we get there. And then we're not talking about, because quite often I personally see that women hesitate because they feel like it's bragging, I'm too masculine, I'm too powerful. And women are quite often afraid of power, really being powerful. They want that, but when they get closer, they just like getting scared. Oh my God.
Right, exactly.
And being in the center of attention, in a way, in the new role.
Yes.
Being better than others to win.
Yes. And that's true, because often women do make themselves smaller. to be able to, I think that's going to help them relate to other people, but the best way we can relate to other people is by building a relationship with them, building trust, having conversations about what your goals are, your vision is, and looking for ways to support other people. And then you feel that it's okay to ask for yourself too.
Yeah.
And I think that what I learned along the way of my career was that I was always active in organizations, particularly women's organizations at that time, and really learned how to support other women and how other women supported me. But I find that, especially in this post-COVID time that we're in, that we are shyer about getting out there and having those conversations. But we really need to keep having them. They can be on Zoom. They don't have to be in person, but we need to be reaching out. We need to be members of organizations. We need to be making sure, for instance, if you're a hybrid, if you're working at home and you're in a corporate job, that you're going into the office once or so a week and making sure you're there when your boss is there so you can have a conversation with your boss.
Yeah.
And we can't give that up. We can't isolate. We have to bring ourselves out, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's in person from time to time safely. It's one of the big things that we don't realize. It's those trusted relationships, not just among friends, but among the business professionals that can move us forward in our career, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're an executive. And in my research, the reason, when I look back on the research that we did on women in the C-suite, how did they get there? They got there by really building strong relationships with the leaders in the organization. And most of them were men. Now there's more and more women, fortunately. So it's got to be both with the men and the women. And that's by just sitting down and talking about what you want, what your life is like, and asking them. Be curious.
And what are the possibilities? And playing small is, of course, preventing that if you hesitate. But I think you're right about pandemic. And, it's like you've said the word isolation. We all got isolated. And, that is like people feel hesitant because a lot of things were triggered during the isolation and during that, a lot of fear. So it's like, I think we kind of lost the touch with the social connections a little too much, so it really requires conscious effort that you put yourself back there and feel safe. Feel safe is really one of the words that I would like to, help women to feel safe, deep down safe, to be who they are, say what they want, and really fulfill their potential, because that requires, when you have safety, you have the inner confidence as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that goes with the isolation is it's comfortable.
Yes.
And when we get too comfortable, we're not moving forward. That's kind of which is why I always say to women over and over again, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you're not doing some things that are uncomfortable, you're probably not moving forward.
Yeah.
I think we have to add that into our life if we're if we want to continue to grow and move forward in our careers. And that's always the if, right? Maybe you don't. Okay, it's okay if you don't. But if that's important to you, then we need to say, okay, and that's where we start to build the courage, right? When we start doing those things. And we also build confidence. Because when we do things that are uncomfortable and it turns out well, we say, oh, wow, look, I did that. Hey, I can do more like that. I'm going to step out more. Look, that yielded.
Yeah. And that's about self-trust, trusting oneself that, I can handle it, and you sort of grow bigger. Being comfortable in your own skin, that's about self-acceptance, self-trust, trusting your skills, and learning new is important as well, because as you said, like we kind of want to think and believe, all as humans, that we are there someday, that, okay, then we are comfortable, then we can just be, but it's, and the way that we do things, as I'm talking about the burnout or work-life balance in my work a lot, it's like then we think that we have two options: either full force forward, pushing, striving, forcing, all in very masculine ways, or then we're just not doing the thing. We're not moving forward in the career, or not getting to the next level. But it's not, there's no one way. It's finding the balance, how to do this both, and relaxing and finding the space to receive everything. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I also want to, you kind of triggered a thought in me as you were saying that, Jenni, and that is that one of the things that we women often don't do also, which can help us address the burnout and the overwhelm that we feel, we're not often great delegators. And we feel like that we have to do things ourselves, right? It has to be perfect. And if we delegate this thing and that thing, that it won't turn out as good as if we did it ourselves.
Yeah.
And you know what? We might be right. And maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
Because if we don't delegate to other people, whether it's people that are working for you or even peers, then we are going to be burned out, because if we try to do it all, it's not possible. And when I look at the women that have truly succeeded and they've made it to the C-suite, why did they make it to the C-suite? They became great delegators. Learn how to trust others and give them the direction they needed, and then let them go do it. And let them do it and hold them accountable to do it by a certain date.
Yeah.
And so when women, as you go up the management chain, to do that more and more, we begin to say, wow, once I trust it, I'm not going to be as much stressed. I'm going to be free to do the really brilliant thinking that I'm capable of, which makes me the leader that I want to be. And then I can talk to my boss about not only what I want for myself, but look how I'm bringing my team along with it. So there's, and that's true for entrepreneurs, by the way, too. It's one of the things that stops many entrepreneurs from growing, is that they don't bring other people in to help them. They'll say they can't afford it, right? But guess what? In order to grow our businesses, we need the help of others.
Yeah.
So we need to look at that and say, well, am I going to take a risk and hire this person and bring them in to do certain things so that I can be out there maybe making more sales or doing whatever it is that I need to do? We need to be considering that as well. Those are the things that as women, we need to look at and say, are we doing this? Are we doing? And that's a lot of what I do with my in my coaching practice, but also teaching it in the programs that I teach. And it's like we have to give up that perfection, and which is hard, because that's how we got all the A's and B's.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was like the outer reward, and finding that inner reward system, creating that inner reward system, that is super important, so that we feel enough, so that people feel that they did enough. And especially women, high achieving women, and with all those A's, we learn to get it from the outside, and then it's not working in the real life anymore after the school. So that is the problem. But the problem often goes deeper. And why the micromanaging? Why FOMO? Fear of missing out. You have to be involved of everything because you don't trust that you do enough, you be enough, that you have what you want and you can actually get that what you want. But quite often women, who I work with, they have the problems to express themselves and be visible, and really show up in a way that they want to show up. Do you see this as well?
Yes, I mean, certainly, yes. And one of the things that I think that we don't talk about enough is also how we present ourselves, right? How do we look confident? It's the way we communicate. And it's maybe the way we hold ourselves. Sometimes I see pictures of like Zoom meetings, and I'll see that the women are small on the screen Sometimes I only see half their faces.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you be present at a meeting if you're not putting yourself forward, even on Zoom?
Yeah.
And how do you be heard at a meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you heard the stories, and I'm sure everybody that's, all the women that are listening to this have had that experience. When they contribute to a meeting, they're either interrupted by someone before they're finished, or someone suggests the same thing they suggested 10 minutes later, and everybody says, oh, what a good idea. But when they said it, nobody responded, right? So we have to teach women how to collaborate. One of the things I tell women is, before you go into a meeting, you should already be talking about what you want to bring up in the meeting with someone who's going to be there. So that if you are interrupted, you make a deal that person will bring it back to you. In other words, they'll say, oh, don't interrupt Jenni. I want to hear exactly the rest of what you wanted to say. And you regain it until you get the confidence to grab it back yourself.
Absolutely.
And if someone takes credit for an idea you brought, that person will say, yes, that's a great idea. When Jenni mentioned it 10 minutes ago, I thought it was a good idea. So glad you agree. I think there's all
interesting. Yeah.
There's devices that we need to learn how to do to support each other. And because until we actually learn how to do it ourselves and say, yes, John, that I'm so glad you agree with what I said a few minutes ago, and then eventually we get that confidence to grab it back ourselves. Yeah. So there's things like that we have to kind of use those tools.
Be courageous enough to use those tools, and because quite often women say, I don't want to play that game,
Right. We just step out, right? And say, okay, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
But why not? I mean, it's not a full-time, it's not the game of your future, but it is. Sometimes we have to do certain things to get the acknowledgement. Right. Exactly.
Which goes back to the vision, and goes back to the goals, and goes back to the dreams. What is that? What do you want? And when we talk about the career, it's like also life, what kind of a life you want to have outside of the career, part of that vision, right? Because
yes, absolutely.
Why we work and why we do all those things, we cannot really enjoy that if we don't understand, like, what does it bring to us. And
that's right. And when you look at the profiles of some of the top CEOs, women CEOs, most of them have families. Most of them, and they've also had a supporter, either a husband or a mother or a caretaker or someone that could help them along the way. It's, very hard to do it by yourself. But at different stages, you can do it at the speed that you want, but begin practicing that leadership, that management, how to do that, and then grow it as your children get older and more independent. You can then take maybe more of a giant step.
And think about what next. And those are the transitions in life that naturally comes up, and then you start thinking, like, what's happening? The kids moved out. And when I work with people who are in there, they're just like, what do I do now? Who I am? What happened?
That's right. But, it's interesting. Even when when my children were at home, when my daughter was 12 years old and I had a business trip, I would often take her with me. I didn't even care if she missed school, because in the public relations business, sometimes we'd have events, and I would have her at the reception desk and teach her how to greet people and do things like that. I
love it.
I would incorporate my children as much as I could into doing things, that they could learn. And by the way, they're both in really great careers now. Kind of think that it didn't hurt that I started them early on some of those things.
I know, and being together, and she sees like a show what you do, and mommy is working, and that kind of things. That's part of my plan as well, because my vision is including a lot of travel for work. So maybe not lots, but decent amount. You have to be
Yes.
careful what do you say. You have to be careful what you say and what you wish for.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, that sounds great. But something important, because last time when we met and talked, you mentioned that many women are leaving the companies. They are leaving their careers, they're leaving their roles, and they just jump out because
Yes.
obviously they have had enough, because otherwise they would go somewhere else. But I don't know. I want to talk about this, and because for me, it's like they don't know what they want. They are fed up. Something's not working with their companies, but it seems to be a trend. So it's not just like one person doing that.
No, you're right. And first they called it the Great Resignation.
Yes.
Then they got a new name, the Great Breakup. Women are breaking up, not with their boyfriends, but with their companies, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing I like to say to women, that if we can catch them before they did break up, is saying, well, what is it? Get in touch with what's wrong with your job. What is it that is upsetting you? And have you really talked to your boss, the person that you report to, about the problems? Or are you just frustrated and don't want to talk to anybody? Because I always say, talk first. What is it? Have you had a conversation about what it is that's upsetting you? Have a conversation, but not in an upset way. Really think through what is making you want to leave. What are you not getting? What would make it better if you stayed? And you need to have that conversation before you go. And is it that you haven't been noticed, that you're working remotely and you're not in the office at all, and not having the conversations you need to have? Or have you not voiced where you want to go in the company? And is there no empathy for you? Well, maybe you need to have you asked for flexibility when that's what you need? Or have you just taken on the inflexibility that they've handed you? Because a lot of times we women don't ask. We don't express what we want. And I would say that's the first thing that we should do before we leave, is look at what can I do to see if, do you hate your job, or do you like your job, but there's aspects of it that are making you very unhappy? And there's a difference there. So we need to get in touch with that and see if there are changes that you can make.
But I actually put that on leaders as well. When they see their employees, their team members are just leaving, don't let them go just that easily. If they're really doing a great job and you want to keep them, it's always a lot cheaper to keep the people than hire new people. So
thousands of dollars cheaper.
Oh my God, much more than that. I did my research as well. Yeah,
it costs over $4,000 they average to replace somebody. Yes, well, bosses should be doing that. Bosses should be asking the question, not just how are you, but how are you really? And really being willing to listen and find out what's happening with you. You don't seem happy, or you don't seem like your old self. I really want to know. So it needs to happen on both sides. If a woman is the boss and she's not happy because maybe her team isn't performing, and she's got to be the one, or certainly men need to be asking that. They're not the ones that have the natural empathy. And I think that's another reason that I know I read in Harvard Business Review that men are leaving because they feel like they have an extra job. They're the ones that are the empathetic ones, that are listening to their team and trying to help their team. So they have like an extra job because nobody else at the company is thinking or caring. Right. So, those are things that I think that we have to look at. And then if, to your point is, well, then what if you do decide to leave? Right.
And quite often, they're so fed up at that point that, they just need to leave because they can't stand it anymore. It's like breaking up the relationship. You're just like, I just took it in all, everything, and I can't stand it anymore. This is
Right.
the only way to get out. So what
Right.
happens then? What
Okay.
what
Well,
is your guidance?
okay, here's what I would recommend. If you got to that point, don't leave quite yet, but start talking to people. Really start talking to the people in your world, relationships with people that you know at other companies or other organizations, and find out what it's like to work there, and find out, what are the people there? How are they being taken care of? And what positions you're considering leaving. And this is what you're looking for, and begin to build your contacts and open doors, because the best way to get another job is not through ads or anything like that. It's through other people.
Mm,
And you want to, I mean, I can't tell you, I've had people that I've talked to that spent 6 months answering, ads, getting that they couldn't get a job. But once they started to talk to the people that they knew, within a matter of 4 weeks, they heard about openings and they got interviews.
yeah, yeah,
So it is really who you know, and who you know means developing a relationship with that person. And it doesn't happen in the first conversation necessarily.
yeah,
It's talking to them and finding out how they're doing. How are
yeah,
you doing?
yeah.
And then being able to then see if doors can be open for you, asking for that.
Absolutely. And people always know people. And this is one of the coaching tools that we use, like, who do you know? Who do you know? It's like making lists, and there always like good connections popping up, somehow. There's
Yeah,
always opportunities, always possibilities, but it's not easy to find those possibilities on your own, right?
not exactly. No,
Yeah,
and it's that personal. I mean, companies like to hire someone that a person in their organization recommends.
yeah,
It immediately gives them trust right there that this person will work out, as opposed to somebody's resume who they don't really know and nobody knows them personally. I mean,
yeah,
you understand why it works that way. It just makes sense.
yeah, yeah. So you have a great tool for people who are interested to, maybe bring something new to their professional role as a coach, or coaches who want to learn more about leadership, especially women, or work with women leaders, and, improve their skills to coach them more. Tell me a little bit about her circle leadership
Okay.
for us.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And that is, I started her circle leadership because in my work in coaching women leaders, both privately and in the program in GW, I was pleased with the effectiveness of it. But I thought, wow, I'm only touching, how many women am I able to impact by myself in a year? 50, 60,
Mm,
70? That's a drop in the bucket.
yeah.
When you look at what we've heard from the World Economic Forum, which told us that it would take 132 years to reach gender equality throughout the world. And
Mm,
when I heard that number, I said, I have to help others do what I'm doing,
mm,
because there's you and I out there that are helping women, that are
mm,
focused on women, but most coaches, and certainly not HR people that are internal or trainers, they train in a general way. They're not necessarily addressing women's challenges and the barriers that women face, which are very unique from what men face. And
mm,
we know that women already have the same leadership skills, are just as good, if not better. And actually, there's been articles about how women actually, in an evaluation in a whole big research project, showed that they were slightly better leaders than men.
Well, the
As a,
emotional skills out there,
exactly.
so that it's like
So that's
usually,
so I really started her circle leadership because I want to multiply what I have learned over all the years and all my studies and research, and what I've actually proven over the last 7 or 8 years. And I
mm,
want to give all that to coaches and
yeah,
trainers, so they can take that same content and bring it to their audience, to their state, their country, wherever they are. Globally, in fact,
mm,
I'd
mm,
like to see it globally. In fact, in our last cohort, we had a woman from Vienna, Austria, in our program. Yeah. So she went through the program. So, you know, it's becoming more global. And that is, we need to take this knowledge. We need to help women in a way that most of them are not being supported right now, with asking the right questions, giving them tools that they haven't thought about, that that really will propel them forward faster. You know, and that's what we need. We need to move it faster before women get frustrated. So it's like adding a component to the coaching, because you and I both know that coaching is a focus on asking questions, right? Help get to that. But we also need to give them some tools.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Tools and strategies and, you know, really practical guidance, because that's how we make the change. You know, in my work, I do deep inner work and healing in that way. And you are perfect, you know, giving the tools, you know, how to move forward and, you know, how to do the mindset stuff and all that. Right. So it's like, it's brilliant.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, I just wanted to say it's touching on the areas of, you know, communication. How are we communicating most effectively? How are we, mindset, as you said, courage, confidence, having a vision, and then knowing, and building relationships, building trusted relationships, which we're great at building relationships with friends, but we're not so good at building relationships in the professional world.
Because there's lack of courage, like hesitation, you know, who am I to talk to these people? I don't know how, I don't have the skills, you know, it's like a
we can give them
hesitation. Yeah, absolutely. And but that's what I see, and that's what I feel. Like many women feel a little bit insecure of those transitions and trusting themselves, like, hey, I got this, I will learn, I will grow, and, you know, I will learn from the mistakes, you know, this is I will learn. That's how we started.
Yeah.
So what are the three main things that you would like to women leaders know now? You know, what is your message, you know? The 3 points of your
I think my message is that you can, number one, have the life you want, but you cannot do it alone. And if we try to do it alone, it's very difficult to get there. So we either need to take a program, have a coach, you need to build relationships. Otherwise, it's have a professional or teach yourself on the, you know, if you can get the resources on the internet, read and apply. If you're somebody that can actually do that yourself, great. But I know myself, I always had a coach, and that made a difference for me. And I went into programs as well. So that would be one thing. You can have that life that you want. And look at really that. Don't be brave, be courageous, be willing to step out of your comfort zone and do things that make you uncomfortable. That is number two. And begin to really build relationships with people that you might think might not want to talk to you, but you might be surprised. And you need to give yourself credit. Write a list of all your accomplishments to build yourself up.
Yes, I love that exercise, you know. And
because you are so much greater than you give yourself credit for. And so those are the things that I think that if every woman looks and considers doing those things, she can have the life that she wants. Yeah. And feel fulfilled, you know, every day, because that's something that I started my own transition, and my aim was like, I want to be happy every day. And it was part of the career, relationships, everything. And and that's the main thing, because if we're not happy today, when can we be happy, you know? That's right. We need to surround ourselves with people that I wrote a book a few years ago. I called it Your Own Personal Entourage.
Yeah.
People now call it a lot of different things, but it's having a circle, which is why we call it Her Circle Leadership. Yeah. Having a circle of support. Yeah. And you need to have that. And you can get it from the people you know, or joining an organization, or going through a program like her circle leadership. You know, you have people that you go through the program with that completely support you and are there for you long after the program is over. So it's all.
Yeah, because the people who take your program, they will be part of the directory that you have, that you,
Well,
you know,
not, yes,
like,
and we have a coaches circle that continues on after the program is over too.
Yeah.
So, and then we do that also in the Executive Women's Leadership Program. We have, I mean, that's it. It's like you can take a program, but then you need to keep those people close.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
You know, that makes a huge difference to have that support as you move forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for this chat and discussion. It was obviously we could go on and on and on for ages.
We could. And, you know, tremendous respect, Jenni. You do such amazing inner work with people, and that's such an important piece of this. You know, it's kind of, we need both, right? We need the inner work, and then we need the outer work.
Yeah, absolutely. And your, you know, your experience, it's and your career, you know, and what you do, it's like, oh, I love it so much. You know, it's so needed, and so needed that you don't give up on women. So you say, like, don't give up, you need to keep going, and you know, yeah, that's so important, and that's how we kind of close the gap. So maybe it's not 132 years, but maybe it's a lot less.
A lot less.
A lot less. So let's change these estimations.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Be well.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And anybody who's listening, I have Leslie's information below of this interview, and her website and her circle leadership program, so you can connect her anytime. And thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us. And we would love to hear from you. You know, if you have any questions, comments, you know, just shoot us. Yeah. Thank you. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Ciao.